Hey guys, back with another Echoing Thoughts podcast here, episode number 41. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about free to play classes, the top 10 that I got if you're free to play. And for those, it's a different type of, class rankings, right? A lot of people, all you see a lot of the times is the best of the best at their peak performance with the best gear, the best stats, everything, the best classes. But free to play is obviously the complete opposite, right? Not saying that, it's not necessarily who has the highest potential. The way I look at it is who sort of, I guess, can do a lot more things than just DPS. And if you are a DPS class, can you do damage with, minimum funding? Basically, do you cap easily, kind of minimizing, not having a lot of small lines? Most of your damage comes from your main abilities. um, that is sort of the criteria that I look for in free to play classes that thrive the best, that excel with minimum funding. And this is strictly for bossing. So bosses that I think about right now for free to play players is mainly Hard Magnus, Arc, and Lotus. And I think there is, think about free to play players. There was a former free to play player. I don't know if he still is, but he just cleared. He's from NA, the Phantom. So at the highest peak, you can clear Damien. But just want to shout out those teams that actually just ended up clearing. There's a few in Asia, one in NA, and I'm sure this is Monday, October 2nd. So by the time I record this before reset, a few more days, I'm sure a lot more teams in Asia are going to clear. But shout out to all those teams clearing Damien. Excited for them. It's we're 2 clears in. Some people, that first world clear was 3 weeks in, but it sounds like this is sort of that window where a lot more teams are going to be pushing to not fall behind, to kind of get those clears in, knowing it's achievable. Just getting the right team, mechanics, DPS, putting it all together and getting that clear. So excited to see more Damien conquerors with those titles on Discord. But this one is all about free to play. And free to play doesn't necessarily mean, the easiest classes to play. I think when I think of free to play players, usually they're arguably some of the ones that know the game the best, that know how to play their classes mechanically, bosses. They're very trustworthy when it comes to mechanics and boss mechanics and surviving and playing their classes, because a lot of the times in order to, overcome not spending, they got to be the best players, right? They got to kind of show their worth in other ways. So I really hold free to play players to kind of a, higher, not a higher standard, but I'm always pleasantly surprised and impressed with how, some of the best players that know the game the best, that know the bosses and are mechanically sound, are free to play. So it's no slight on them. It's just they choose not to, they make the right decision and honestly not spending on this game. But we're going to the honorable mentions before I get into the top 10. So the top 10 was pretty tough. I think the top 5 for me was pretty standard, but going from 6 to, making out the top 10, even the top 13 with my honorable mentions, is sort of up for debate. Right? I think so these are obviously interchangeable. Even the top 5, some people might disagree. I think the classes are probably all the same, but maybe just the order is different. But coming out kind of my honorable mentions just outside the top 10s, I got 3 classes that really just missed the cut, still bring value. And the way I looked at them was they do things a little bit differently. I got the Evan, because they have the Evan buff is one of the best buffs in the game, class buffs. They have good above average survivability for mages. Their damage is consistent. They're difficult to play, a combo class, but again, kind of baked into it all for me is I assume that they're the best. They're mechanically sound. They know how to play their class, so that's not really a differentiator. So I think Evans are really good. and they don't require, they're not heavily, their DPS doesn't come from their V3 skills or their V skills in general. It's kind of combos here and there. Their V skills are very good, but it's not like you have to max them to get the best bang for your buck out of the skills, right? They're not duration based skills like some of the better classes that, in order to min max your DPS, you need to have them level 30 so you can get them for longer durations. Evans just aren't the case. They have a lot of skills. They have a lot of, passive lines, and I think they're very strong. Just being honorable mention is no shame. Just honestly, there aren't many mages on this list, so Evans will always be up there in my opinion. Another honorable mention is Kaisers. Might be a shocker to you, but I think what separates them is their ability they're very tanky. They have a teleport, so when I think of Lotus, they have a easier time of surviving dealing with lasers. They're good bomb clearers. Again, that's why I mentioned Evans. I forgot to say, arguably some of the best bomb clearers in the game. Kaisers are tanky. I think they have a class buff as well, that ground absorption that helps reduce damage. It's nice. They have good mobility. They have pretty good damage as well. And I like those classes that have, like their swords, for example, that are just passive, that they just go off and do damage on their own. Very good for Lotus and Arc. And even for Arc, they can, if you put them in defensive mode, they can tank. They can get more HP, more defense, more HP, decreasing everything. Sorry, all the defensive skills that makes them very tanky. They can tank a lot of their lightning. I think the lightning skill even does less damage for them. It doesn't do the full 120k, and all their other attacks are very easily tankable. And in Hard Magus, they can eat up all those tick damage and things standing outside the magnetic field. So Kaisers are very good solo classes, self-sustaining classes, and they're just their DPS is pretty solid. And then my last honorable mention is one of the better DPS classes is the Dual Blade. The only reason I don't really put them up there in the top 10 is because some of the classes above them just bring a little bit more to the team. And when you're a free-to-play player, a lot of Dual Blade's lines are small. They have a lot of them, but not an extraordinary amount where it kind of makes up the difference. Like, for example, Mercedes. Dual Blade is, they're good bomb clearers. In Lotus, they have good survivability. They have good, they don't rely heavily on their V skills to be max to do damage. And, I just think that they require, honestly, one of the classes that require a ton of funding. And as a free-to-play player, they have a hard time capping a lot of their lines. And if they don't have funding, they just kind of don't do as much damage as you would expect at the highest level. So honorable mention, no shame in that. Dual Blades. But then starting my top 10, I got Wind Archers. Wind Archers are, borderline top 10 class overall, not just for free-to-play players. The reason I like them, again, mobility, best archer. Mobility is archer-wise. Survivability, they have a short iframe, 30-second cooldown. Their lines, their main skill, you can attack on the move. It caps very easily. Yes, they have small passive lines here and there, but a majority of their damage, I would say is, cappable. Easier to cap than most classes. And they're not heavily reliant on their V skills as much as other classes. And I like consistent damage dealing classes, especially for free-to-play players, because it just, those classes tend to, just do more consistent damage. They don't require a lot of funding. That's what I tend to notice. And so Wind Archers are a good class. Very good, top 10. And with Remaster coming up, I expect them to raise in the ranks. Good Lotus bomb clearers, good survivability, good mobility. Hard Magnus soloing is a breeze. I do it on a Wind Archer with a Fafnir weapon. Wind Archers are very good. I like them, top 10. And, if you have any, if you disagree, you agree, I would love to hear you guys' top 10 for free-to-play classes. This was kind of a hard list to make, to be honest, and I think that everyone's list would be different. So I definitely love to hear you guys think, where you guys agree or disagree. If you guys main these classes and you're free to play, love to hear you guys' thoughts. Shadow Word number 9, and I got them all up dual blades. Could honestly have them higher. One of the things that I remembered hearing from Gem, uh, the Blaze Wizard, he talked about how Shadow Wars were the best free to play mobbing class survivability because of Mezzo Guard, their tankiness, their survivability, their DPS is easy. Their lines are, they have clones, but the clones aren't. They don't have a ton of clones. A lot of their damage comes from Mezzo Explosion, which is pretty easy to cap, I would say. One of the easier skills to cap, maybe. Has high skill percent. Shadows overall have pretty high skill percent, and they're consistent damage dealers. They are pretty good with bomb clearing and Lotus. They have their hyper skills. They have sudden raid. Their mobility is good. They have multiple teleports. They can use their V1 and V2 skills as very. They have a good toolkit, in my opinion, a better toolkit than dual blades, especially for free to play players, for solo content. And I think Shadows are very good. A very good class to choose from as a free to play player. And I think, you'll notice kind of in my list, Explorers right now, it is hard to choose against them. You can't go wrong with pretty much any Explorer class. And so I think Shadow Wars is no exception, and they are well deserving of being number 9 in this top 10. Loomies come in at number 8 for me. I think Loomies are just always going to be good because they're just so tanky. Arguably still, if not the best, one of the best mobbers in the game. Map clearers. They don't have to have those skills. Since they're regular skills, they don't have to be maxed to greatly benefit from it. And their V1 and V2 are great for Lotus. They have great teleports. They have multiple teleports. They can teleport to the boss. They can teleport just a regular teleport. They have good bursts, good consistent damage. They have high, their range of attacks. They chain. They hit forward and back. Loomies are very well-rounded. They have a ton of lines. I think some of the best lines in the game. And they get that from once you hit level 200 and you have all your V skills at the minimum, right? They're not one of those classes where you have to have, they're not very duration-based cooldowns. So they have passive lines with their V skills. I like the Lumi class a lot. I think there's a lot to like. They cap very easily as well. And so they are cream of the crop, and their class buff, their meditation skill is a class buff that is basically like an Evan buff, and that's great for the party. Nice to have, especially in longer fights, boss fights. And Loomies can obviously survive on their own. They have a little iframe as well if they want to use it. So yeah, I really like Loomies. They have a stun too. They are, one of the better mages, just consistently one of the best classes in the game, even if now their lines are some of the best. Now, 6 and 7, I actually got the Hero at number 7 and a DK at number 6. I think Heroes are arguably better DPSers, especially they cap easier. So with lower cap, free-to-play players cap much easier as a hero. They have equal mobility. I would say they have heroes that have a little bit more burst. DKs are more sustained, consistent damage dealers. I think heroes, DK's V3 is more of a burst skill. So it may require a little bit more leveling up in order to maximize it because it reduces the cooldown as you level it up. So I'm assuming in my head that free-to-play players maybe have levels 1 through 10 on their V skills, and so it's just not as impactful. It's just not as good of a skill versus being maxed. While heroes, on the other hand, even though their V skills are kind of duration based, I feel like their damage is built in passively through their main skill, Raging Blow, I think it's called, and so But again, I got Heroes 7th and DKs 6th. And the reason why is mainly surrounded by Final Pact. And DKs have Leech. So they're attacking, they're self-sustainable. They can attack on their own. Or they can survive on their own. And if they do, for some reason, die in Lotus, they have that extra Final Pact, 45 seconds of immunity, an iframe. Pretty OP. DKs are very good map clearers as well compared to Heroes. So I'm thinking of Lotus in that sense in Phase 1. And Heroes and DKs, they have a class final damage buff that's very nice. That gives it to the whole party. And so even though Heroes do have 10% crit res, which is definitely not something you should sleep on, it's it's kind of just picking and choosing. I think both are very good. 6 and 7 right outside the top 5 ranked for me. And they also are very tanky. Have more built-in HP. Both of them have that Explorer Warrior 1k physical attack, which is very nice, especially for free-to-play players. Having more HP is nice as well. Just very strong. Explorer Warriors are, in this game right now, in the current meta, are arguably some of the best tanks in the game. They're very, they can, hold their own with some of the best classes. So I think it's no shame to be 6 and 7. I just got DK slightly a little higher. And this is that was sort of where I think those classes could be interchangeable. I'm curious if you have other classes built in. I'm looking at the list right here. So let's see, kind of just a reminder. Let's go. We got Evans. Let's just put them in the B tier. Kaisers. Got honorable mention, kind of interchangeable. And then DBs. So that's 13, 12, and 11. And then Wind Archers, number 10. Probably should have did this to start off with. Oops. Wind Archers, number 10. Shadowers, number 9. Where's my Shadower? 8 is the Lumi. Heroes, number 7. DK is number 6. And this is, A tier, whatever, 6 through 10. And then my top 5. Now, if you may have guessed, you probably know what these 5 classes are. But my order may be a little bit different than most people. But starting off number 5, I think this is probably... Just starting number 5, I got the Shade. I think Shades are very good. Truly. And what I like about them is their V3 is just passive lines. 100% uptime on it. From level 1, I'm pretty sure. I'm 100% sure that's the case. So, just off the bat, getting to level 200, you have if you have all your V skills, you're going to get your V1, V2, and your V3 are all passive lines. I think their V1 or their V2 procs every 5 seconds. I think this one is their V3 procs every 3 seconds, something like that. But all I know is that as long as you're attacking with Spirit Claw or your main attacks, you just get extra lines. It's like 8 free ADI lines. And that's nice for free-to-play players because, Shades cap a lot of the time pretty easily. They don't have clone skills. They have small lines here and there. Obviously, their support is up there with some of the best split. They have crit res in their V skills. They have great mobility. They're self-sustainable. They have a leech skill and as far as an instant cast heal as well. Shades are just very well-rounded. Always will be. Even though their lines may seem underwhelming at the top, and it may kind of cap them as far as potential, peak potential. They with minimum cap, let's say 15 mil cap, you can do a lot of DPS, and you will be just on a team in general because of your split skill, because of your support, because of your crit res, and then on top of that, they're actually very good bomb clears, and being in their hyper skill, which is on a pretty short cooldown, you won't die to bombs. You have an iframe. You have a teleport. So in Lotus, you are staying on the ground, not dying. You have it's called your backstep. So Shades are insanely important and good as a free-to-play player. Arc, Lotus, Harg Magnus, those are kind of the bosses I'm thinking about. You also have a stun as well. So I'm a big fan of Shades. And I think that they easily top 5. They could arguably be higher. But I think, interchangeably, you could put them as high as 3, maybe. But I got them at 5. I just like the top 4 classes a little bit better. And Bishop. So Bishop is my number 4. Now, Bishop's obviously no-brainer. Every team has a Bishop. Every team basically needs a Bishop. It's really hard to clear without them. And the simple fact is that you, as a free-to-play player, if you do no damage as a Bishop, you will still be valued. You will still have an impact. You will still help the team clear in many different ways. For example, you can be full support mode as a Bishop, like in Damien. And you can do, I've seen Bishops do 1% damage in Damien. And they will clear. And they will need the Bishop. You will take a good, great, mechanically sound Bishop that does 1% of your damage over a, let's just say, a Shadower or a DK or a hero that does 13% of the damage. Just because that DPS is replaceable, but what a Bishop does is irreplaceable, right? The res, the dispels, the heals, the fountain, the class buffs, advanced blessing is just second to none, arguably. It's just the things that Bishops do besides doing damage is what makes them viable. And you don't have to do any damage. You don't have to level your V skills. You just got to know the boss, be good at playing your class. Now, it's not an easy class to play, but if you mastered it, if you're a good player, you will have a spot in a team and have a huge impact and be irreplaceable, right? So that's why I got them top 4. The only reason I don't got them higher is because these top 3 classes, and even the Shade arguably, has a great amount of support, but more damage. I mean, I've seen Bishops top the charts in Lotus with maximum funding, but with equal funding, Bishops should not touch any of the other 3 classes. And it should not touch a Shade as far as DPS as well, in my opinion. So, but for free-to-play players, yeah, top 4, easy. Some people could have them as number 1. I wouldn't disagree with you. I just think Bishops are that good, that important. And if you have any doubts, how to get into a party, play Bishop. But the new top mage, in my opinion, for free-to-play players especially, is Asia, ranked in at number 3. Now, some could say that, you can clear a boss without Asia. You can't really clear a boss without Bishop. True. I kind of disagree with you there. But what Sia provides with their V3 skills is just, I mean, I've never experienced it until I've experienced it in Damien, and you don't realize what Sia brings is just something that the Bishop just cannot. Essentially a Heaven's Door that has no cooldown. You just reapply it, and it just has no cooldown. It can save, Heaven's Door can save 10 lives at maximum every, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Asia's V3 can save 10 people from one map clearing, from one arc screen crack. And then you could reapply it and use it again, and you could save people from lightning. You could save people from another screen crack with no cooldown within 5 seconds. It's just absolutely insane. And Sia's just have better DPS than Bishops. They have final damage buffs. They have crit rate buffs. They have, so many great final damage buffs and things that just help the team support-wise, and their DPS is just better. They are better map clearers than Bishops as far as Lotus bombs. Their mobility is better. I mean, they got teleports, but I like their teleport more than a Bishop's. I just think Sia's arguably, actually probably can't argue. Sia is one of the best 3 classes in the game. I think that's just whichever way you want to look at it. I mean, it's a Maplestory, it's a MSM exclusive class. It has to be one of the best classes in the game. And I think, yes, it's challenging, very hard to play, very hard to master. But if you have someone that knows what they're doing, man, it is game changing. Even more game changing than what a Shade, Bishop, and arguably what a Phantom and Paladin has, which is my top 2. But I just think that Sias are, I think one of the things that don't make them the top 3, if I were to nitpick, is that they don't have self heals, and they're tanky. They're tanky mages, but they don't have an iframe as well. If they have ethereal form, which is nice, but it's not an iframe. Like it doesn't keep you alive during damage reflect for Lotus, for example, or for Arc, for example. It doesn't, it's just not as good as an iframe. But I mean, nitpicking. Sias are SS tier, and easily top 3 free to play class in the game, in my opinion. Now the top 2, I remember doing a tiers list when I literally my first tiers list back in I think it was my first podcast, really. It was between Phantom and Pally again. And I had Phantoms first and Paladin second. And 10 months later, I got exactly the same. I got Paladins number 2. And I just think Phantoms are so dang good, man. Like Phantoms, so, and thinking about this, I was going to say Paladins, unbiasedly, of course. Paladins would be number 1. And I think a lot of people would agree because of just how insane their damage is right now. Their burst is insane. They have noble demands. They have synchro. They have single res. They have self-sustaining heals. They have more HP. They have a stun. They have, the Explorer Remaster buffs, the physical attack, all those things, right? Echo, Divine Echo, which you can give to another top DPS. And you see, Paladins topping the charts with way less cap. Like if you had a Phantom and a Paladin side by side DPS wise, Pally would probably win 9 out of 10 times, right? So I understand if you have them number 1 over Paladins, over Phantoms, and you think I'm just, I don't want my class to be number 1. I would gladly put Paladins number 1. Trust me. I have no shame in saying we are the best class. We are the best free-to-play class. But I just think it's not true. And what kind of made me even more, I don't know what to say, believe that it's true, kind of reinforced my thought process was when I noticed that another NA team just cleared Damien. And yes, it's Damien and it's not free to play, but they had three Phantoms and 2 Paladins. And it just felt like having more Phantoms, the utility that Phantoms bring is just it can replace everything. So once I get into Phantoms, I'll talk about Pally just a little bit more. I highly recommend Paladin, but I just think that as splitting hairs at this point, this doesn't even want me to put Paladins there. Hello? There you go. But the real X factor for me, the difference is that Paladins have a lot of clone lines, small lines. And even though they have a ton of lines, a ton of burst, you need a lot of stats. You need a lot of gear. And I see a lot of Paladins with minimum gear get frustrated. You need your Echo to be a high level, Divine Echo skill to be a high level to maximize your damage, right? Like I said, your Divine Echo at level 1 is a 60-second cooldown and max is a 90-second cooldown. 1/3, and it's on a 3-minute cooldown. So at level 1, Echo is up 1/3 of the fight, and at level 30, it's up half the fight. That difference is massive. And if you just don't have that skill a decent enough level, which a lot of free-to-play players maybe don't, or it takes them longer to get to, your damage is just going to significantly drop. Significantly. And that is the one downside to playing Paladin. And I just think Phantoms are safer. Phantoms can do more damage with less. They are not reliant on their V skills at all being maxed because, or maybe not as heavily reliant because Paladins, not besides Divine Echo, but their Righteous Hammers are duration based. So that needs to be maxed. Their V3 skill needs to be maxed because it reduces the cooldown of it. So you can use it more frequently. Your Weapon Aura is duration based. Your Impenetrable Skin to get max value, to reduce the cooldown of it, of the iframe, you have to have it a higher level. Phantoms don't have any of that. Maybe one. Maybe they're Ace in the Hole. I think you can. It lasts a little bit longer. But everything else are instant cast skills. Their V skills are instant cast. So at level 1, maybe it won't do as much damage, but it's not like it's as impactful of a V skill for level 1 versus level 30. Skill percentage, that's all it is. Ignoring me defense, that's all it is. But a lot of times Phantoms will probably cap with those lines, or majority of those lines anyways, with a certain level of skill percent, at lower skill percent. While Paladins, you just, to maximize the class to do enough damage to actually showcase it, you have to have more stats and level up these V skills. I just think Phantom's baseline is so much higher. Paladin's peaks are higher, but Phantoms, for free-to-play players, DPS-wise, they cap easier, they can attack on the move, they have Synchro, they have Darksight, they have Freud, 3 iframes on top of their cards that heal them. They can go defensive, they can take Magic Guard, they can take Mesoguard, they have the top-notch survivability. They, even in Lotus, they have a teleport skill. Insane, right? So they don't ever have to take the platforms. They pretty good map clears as well with Tempest, with their cards, with their hyper skills, with their Ace in the Hole. They have so many tools in the toolkit, not to mention how many skills that they can take, stolen steals that they can steal. So in Damien, we're talking about they can steal Heal, they can steal Fountain, they can steal, so from Bishops, right? Heal, Fountain, they can take Shell for Lotus, they can take Magic Guard, they can take obviously Rez, they can take Time Leak from Buccaneers, they can take Synchro, they can take like, I don't know, even for mobbing even, but they can take like they can take Monkey Magic, they can take Hyperbody, no, not Hyperbody, Monkey and Meditation, so they can take all the best class buffs to help your team if you don't have certain classes. They can take stolen skills to replace a bishop. They can take Noble Demand from a paladin. They can go solo DPS. They can go maximize their DPS and take DKs or heroes V skills. They just get the best out of all these classes, and they have so much in their toolkit, so much more than any of these great classes, that they are just so versatile. The more Phantoms, just the more options, tools you have in your toolkit, and their damage isn't bad. Like, it's not bursty, but you'll see, like, if you ever seen like a Damien clear, a longer fight, some of these more recent clears, Phantoms are number 1, top in the charts. They do consistent, good damage while keeping the rest of the team alive, while other Phantoms are playing support, while other Phantoms are doing all the other stuff. Like, there's just so many roles that you can play while doing good DPS. It's just, as much as I want to put Paladin there, as much as I want to put Sia, Bishop, it's Phantoms just feel like a tier above. And people just go to DPS and see Paladins, like in a 4-minute fight, they can dish out so much burst. Yes, it's true. But DPS, if you're a free-to-play player, DPS, you have to be able to contribute in other ways besides DPS. 1, you cannot die. And 2, you have to be able to support, do other things, keep other people from dying, res other people. And Paladins are just second to none in that aspect, in my opinion. And, they just have to be able to be mobile, self-sustaining, heal, teleport, iframes, whatever it is. They just have everything in the toolkit that just makes makes them the number one free-to-play class in my opinion. And I think a lot of people know that, right? You see so many Phantoms, like alt players playing Phantoms and to clear an Arc and Lotus and things like that. It's just, they don't have to do any damage. They just have to do no damage, and they'll just provide so much value to the team. So this is my top 10 plus a little extra. Honorable mention, free-to-play players, thinking of bosses like Hard Magnus, like Arc, like Lotus, and even Damien. Like free-to-play player, like you can contribute. And if there's any free-to-play player that can clear, any free-to-play class that can clear Damien at the highest level, it's got to be one of these top 5. But I would say it's most likely a Phantom. Most likely a Phantom. So, again, let me know in the comments what you think about this list, about this free-to-play. I mean, I'm not a free-to-play player, so maybe I'm a little, outside of my area of expertise. So let me know, right? But I think that this list is how I would think, especially the top 5. Pretty tough to argue with those top 5 classes. The order, different. But thank you again. If you guys, thank you again for 1K subscribers. I put up a video skill of my gear and skill showcase of my Paladin. If you guys want to check that out, hoping to put out a Damien guide soon to help you guys, at least a phase 1, to help some players get through that a lot smoother. But let me know what else you guys want to talk about. Questions down in the comments below so that I can answer them in my next video, or I'll comment to them and then go in more depth in future videos. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much. Ooh, and maybe by the time this podcast comes out or the next week's podcast comes out, there'll be some sneak peeks. October update. Might get a new patch. Something good. Hopefully, we'll see. But thank you again. I'll see you guys next time.